Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just jump right into it. Today, we're unpacking a massive World Cup controversy that literally had the entire globe scratching its head. And it all centers on one thing, a missing piece of highly anticipated 3D-style technology. We're gonna look at a very specific 72-hour window where, according to reports and widespread fan reactions, the organizational structure behind the world's biggest sporting event seemed to experience this, well, a slow-motion collapse. And it all culminated in a single, highly contested moment right there on the pitch.
Imagine the scene, right? Millions of people across the planet are glued to their screens. A critical penalty has just been awarded in the very first week of the World Cup. Everyone is waiting for that definitive 3D-style graphic to pop up and settle a massive offside debate. We've been completely conditioned to expect this visual validation. But what happens when that screen stays completely empty? Seriously, what happens to public trust when the ultimate, undeniable spatial proof just goes missing in action? That is exactly the dilemma we're exploring today.
Part 1, the controversial penalty call.
To really understand this missing evidence, we've got to set the stage. Early in the match between Qatar and Switzerland at Levi Stadium, Swiss striker Breel Embolo went down to the spot for the very first penalty of the entire tournament. This is after Remo Freuler got absolutely clattered by the Qatari keeper. Now, looking at the contact alone, yeah, it was a clear collision. But here's the massive catch. The replay being broadcast to millions of viewers strongly suggested that Freuler was actually offside before that collision ever even happened. Everyone, fans in the stadium, people at home, pundits in the studio, was looking at the exact same replay and thinking the exact same thing. He clearly looked past the last defender. Now, the technology that was supposed to clear this all up is the calibrated offside line. After VAR took a long look, confirmed the penalty, and let Embolo score, the whole world waited for the graphic. You know the one. It's that 3D-style semi-automatic technology that generates those super precise colored lines on the pitch. It's the definitive, spatial proof we're used to seeing every single week in major leagues around the world. It's literally designed to end any offside debate in like 2 seconds flat. Which brings us to part 2, the missing 3D evidence. Here's where the story takes a sharp left turn. That 3D-style line, it never came. Just think about the immense scale of this audience compared to the utter lack of visual proof. The graphic didn't show up on the Fox broadcast here in the US, it wasn't on the British broadcasts, it didn't appear in Spain. Across all global feeds, absolutely zero visual proof was shown to the public. The viewing world was entirely denied the one piece of evidence that could have actually validated the official's call. Instead, they got an agonizing void of empty space right when transparency was needed the absolute most.
Moving to part 3, fans and pundits react. Naturally, into this massive visual void poured the immediate frustration of the viewers when you withhold expected 3D-style proof from millions of people squinting at a questionable replay. A huge reaction is pretty much guaranteed. On X, German-speaking supporters and global fans were practically unanimous, calling it a straight-up refereeing scandal. And the studio pundits, well, they definitely didn't hold back either. Live at halftime, Gary Neville pointed out that the host broadcaster literally had the semi-automatic decision in their hands but failed to show it instantly. He noted the existing fan distrust and even used some incredibly strong language, saying that a governing body holding evidence internally and refusing to show it was like a dictatorship. And honestly, that brilliantly illustrates just how unified the media outrage was. Ian Wright echoed that exact same sentiment immediately. He was questioning why the semi-automatic line wasn't shown, pointed out the player clearly looked offside, and flat out called the whole situation a scandal. His critique, saying they do what they want sitting in their office, perfectly captured the total frustration of a massive audience denied the standard 3D-style evidence they've come to rely on. Part 4, the technical glitch defense. So how did the governing body respond to this global outcry? Well, the crucial thing to note here is the stark contrast between public perception and the official explanation. About 3 hours post-match, FIFA finally broke their silence. They stated that a brief technical outage had actually prevented the 3D on-site animation graphic from generating. They insisted the VAR's actual workflow wasn't affected at all, and that the lines the officials used showed no offside. But, as the sources point out, fans whose trust was already totally shot didn't just see a harmless glitch. Nope, they immediately suspected a cover-up. Let's just walk through exactly how this played out. Step 1. The controversial penalty is awarded and scored live. Step 2. The standard 3D-style graphic completely fails to generate for the global broadcast. Step 3. 3 agonizing hours pass with absolutely zero transparency for the fans who watched it live. And finally, Step 4. The governing body releases a statement and 2 images basically excusing the delay. They essentially asked the public to just trust that the camera broke with the proof still existed somewhere, only surfacing after the match's result was already cemented. Which leads us to part 5, 3 days of disasters. To fully grasp why that technical glitch explanation was met with so much profound skepticism, we gotta pull the camera back. We can't just look at this one 3D VAR failure in isolation. The source material paints a pretty clear picture of a rapidly escalating 72-hour wall of distrust. Look at day 1. Reports were focused on insanely high ticket prices completely boxing out ordinary fans. Then, day 2. Headlines are dominated by empty seats and travel bans shutting out supporters from around 40 countries, with team staff literally getting held up at the borders. Morning of day 3, a selected World Cup referee is reportedly denied entry and sent home. And then, boom, evening of day 3, we get the massive 3D VAR offside failure. It wasn't an isolated incident. It was viewed as the final brick in a massive wall of organizational missteps. It got to the point where even the most basic data points provided by the organizers were being questioned. Take this number, 67,966. That was the officially announced attendance for this exact match, claiming the stadium was just shy of full capacity. But our source points out that to anyone watching on TV, the stadium visibly looked maybe 3/4 full with massive, noticeable gaps across all 4 tiers. When even the basic attendance figures feel totally disconnected from visual reality, trust just evaporates rapidly. And this really illustrates the actual tragedy of all this administrative controversy. The sport itself suffers. Qatar managed to strike late in this match to grab the very first point in their World Cup history. That should have been a genuinely great football story, right? A moment of triumph to celebrate. But instead, as the source highlights, that achievement was completely buried under the noise of the missing 3D-style offside line and the global outreach. The football was delivering, but the administrative chaos was completely overshadowing it. The overarching theme from our source material is simple. When an organization spends 3 days at the dead center of controversy, ticketing issues, border restrictions, referee send-offs, they entirely lose the benefit of the doubt. You don't just get to suddenly play the trustworthy narrator when a critical piece of 3D technology magically fails on the global stage. For a lot of observers tracking those 72 hours, the missing line wasn't just a technical error. It was emblematic of a slow-motion collapse of credibility. So, we arrive at the ultimate question raised by all of this data. Was this missing 3D line truly just an honest, incredibly poorly timed technical glitch? Or, like the pundits and fans argued, was it the inevitable consequence of an organization demanding a level of blind trust that it simply hadn't earned over the preceding 72 hours? We'll leave you to look at the structure of these events and decide for yourself. Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and remember, keep questioning what you see, or in this case, what you don't see on the pitch.